A poor waitress gave food to an old woman every day. One morning, a luxury SUV arrived at her door. The woman by the steps. The first time Maya Ellison noticed the old woman, it was a morning when the wind coming off Peachtree Street smelled like rain and exhaust and something else. Something sharp like cold concrete that had never been warm. Maya was hauling 2 garbage bags from the kitchen to the side alley behind Maple and Grits Diner when she saw her. The woman was sitting on the bottom step of the service entrance, her back straight despite everything. Despite the thin brown dress patterned with faded flowers that had given up their color years ago, despite the fraying headscarf knotted tightly beneath her chin, despite the fact that it was cold and she had no coat. She sat with her hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for church to begin. Like sitting on cold concrete steps in the back alley of a diner in Atlanta's Old Fourth Ward was a perfectly dignified thing to do. Maya almost said nothing. She was already behind. The morning rush had hit harder than expected, and her section had been a controlled disaster since opening. Lorraine, the manager, had already given her one look over the coffee station that communicated approximately 11 different warnings without a single word. But she stopped. She stopped because the woman's hands, though folded neatly, were trembling, not from cold, or not only from cold. They trembled the way hands tremble when they have been still for too long and the body beneath them has been running on too little. "Ma'am," Maya said. The woman looked up. Her eyes were the color of dark honey, and they were entirely calm. Not the calm of someone who felt safe, but the calm of someone who had decided long ago that panic was a luxury she could not afford. "Good morning," the woman said. Her voice was low and precise, each word placed carefully, like she was setting good china on a table. Maya set down the garbage bags. "Are you all right?" "I am quite well, thank you." Maya looked at her for a long moment. "Have you eaten?" The woman said nothing. That nothing was the loudest answer Maya had ever heard. She brought her a plate from the kitchen. Eggs scrambled soft the way the cooks did them before the breakfast rush, when nobody was watching the portion sizes. A biscuit with real butter, a cup of grits with cheddar melted into the top, and a large coffee with 2 sugars. She paid for it herself, a small amount from the little she had in her apron pocket, which was everything she had until the next paycheck cleared. She didn't think about it very hard. She just did it. The woman, who said her name was Evelyn, just Evelyn, like a single name was all she had decided to give, ate slowly and with tremendous dignity. She didn't rush. She didn't hunch over the plate. She sat on that cold step and ate like she was at a table with a cloth on it, and when she finished, she folded the paper napkin into a small square and set it on the empty plate and said, "That was a very good biscuit." "Lorraine makes them from scratch," Maya said. "She comes in early just for the biscuits." "Someone who wakes before dawn to make biscuits for other people," Evelyn said, "is someone who understands what it means to care." Maya smiled. She had to get back inside. She picked up the plate, and when she turned to go, Evelyn said, "What is your name?" "Maya." Evelyn repeated it softly, like she was trying the sound of it. "Maya. That is a beautiful name." "It means beautiful in Swahili," Maya said. "My mom's idea. She thought it would give me something to live up to." Something passed across Evelyn's face. A flicker so fast Maya almost missed it. Something that looked for just a moment like grief. "Your mother sounds wise," Evelyn said. Maya went back inside. She didn't expect to see Evelyn again. Atlanta was a city full of people passing through, and the Old Fourth Ward had enough foot traffic that a stranger on the steps was just weather. Noticeable for a moment, then gone. She told herself she'd done a good thing, and let it be a one-time good thing. But the following morning, when Maya came in for the early open, Evelyn was there. Same step, same folded hands, same quiet dignity, like the concrete beneath her was perfectly fine, like the cold creeping up through her thin-soled shoes was not happening at all. Maya bought her another plate. Scrambled eggs again, but this time she added bacon and a second biscuit. She still didn't think about it very hard. The next day, Evelyn was there again. By the end of that week, Maya had stopped being surprised. It had become a ritual. Maya arrived. Evelyn was on the step. Maya brought food. They talked for a little while Evelyn ate, and then Maya went back to her section, and the day folded over it like it was nothing. Like a small act of kindness was just the ordinary texture of a morning. Except Maya was spending what little she had every day on a woman she barely knew, which on a waitress's income in Atlanta, where rent already ate most of her take-home, was not nothing. It was, in fact, a choice she was making with the kind of money she didn't technically have. She didn't tell anyone. Not Lorraine, who would have found some regulation about feeding people on the service entrance steps. Not her coworker Bex, who was kind but had the tendency to turn quiet acts into loud stories. Not her roommate Tamika, who would have told her she was being irresponsible, which was probably true. She just kept doing it. In those morning conversations, Maya learned things about Evelyn in pieces. The way you learn about a photograph by looking at it section by section. She learned that Evelyn had grown up in Savannah, that she had once owned a house with a garden where she grew collard greens and several kinds of tomatoes, that she had a son, one son whose name she never said directly, but whom she referenced in the careful, sideways manner of someone navigating around something sharp. My son would have liked this kind of morning. My son was never an early riser. Always past tense, always at an angle. Maya did not push. She understood, in the way that children of loss understand, that some things people tell you by not telling you. She also learned that Evelyn was sharp, extraordinarily sharp, sharp in the way that old trees are, not quick and bright like something young, but dense and deep and absolutely immovable. She made observations about the customers Maya described from her section that were so precise they startled her. She asked questions about the diner's finances. How many covers do you do on a busy morning compared to a slower one? That made Maya realize she was talking to someone who had, at some point in her life, known a great deal about how businesses ran. "Where did you work?" Maya asked one morning, several weeks in. "Many places," Evelyn said. "What kind of work?" Evelyn looked at her over the rim of the coffee cup. "The kind where you build things, and then sometimes you watch them fall." She didn't say more, and Maya didn't ask. One morning, as autumn deepened, something changed. Maya came out the service door with the usual plate, grits and eggs and a biscuit, the large coffee with 2 sugars, and found Evelyn not sitting upright on the step, but leaning heavily against the brick wall beside it, her eyes half closed, her breath coming in short, uneven pulls. "Evelyn?" Maya set the food down fast and crouched beside her. "Hey, look at me!" Evelyn's eyes opened slowly. They were glassy in a way they had never been before. "I am fine," she said, but her voice had lost its careful precision. The words came out soft and unsteady, like she was speaking through gauze. "You are not fine." Maya put her hand on Evelyn's forehead. She was cold and clammy in the particular way that frightened people. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No." The word came out firmer than Maya expected. "No ambulance." "Evelyn, no." She gripped Maya's wrist with surprising strength. Her honey-colored eyes focused briefly with something urgent in them. "There is someone," she said. "Someone who needs to know, but not an ambulance." "Who? Who do I call?" Evelyn's hand on her wrist tightened one more degree, and then she said a name. One name, just one, pressed out like it cost her something significant before her eyes closed entirely and her body went soft and heavy, and she slumped sideways into Maya's arms. The name she said was Damien, and Maya, holding a woman she had known for only a short time, and fed with money she couldn't spare, found herself kneeling on a cold Atlanta concrete step, with her arms full of someone else's emergency, absolutely certain that nothing about this morning was going to end the way she had expected. She called 911. She held Evelyn's hand until the sirens came. The ambulance took Evelyn away. Maya watched it disappear around the corner and stood there for a moment doing nothing. The cold had settled into her uniform and the service step was just a step again. Empty, like nothing had ever happened on it. She went back inside and worked her section like nothing was wrong because nothing technically was wrong. But she kept thinking about the name, Damien, the way Evelyn had said it. Not like calling for help, but like issuing a warning. Like a name she'd avoided saying for a long time and had finally, under extreme duress, allowed out. She had no last name, no number, no address. Nothing for a woman she'd fed for weeks except Savannah, collard greens, a garden with several kinds of tomatoes, and a son who had never been an early riser. By midday, she'd checked her phone several times without knowing what she expected to find. Lorraine caught her at the coffee station during the post-lunch lull. Lorraine Marsh had been managing Maple and Grits for years and had a talent for noticing things she had not been told. "You're distracted," Lorraine said. "Not an accusation, just information." "The lady on the steps," Maya said before Lorraine could ask. "She collapsed this morning. I called 911. Lorraine wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. "Bex told me about it a while ago. I didn't say anything because it was your business and it was kind." A pause. "Grady Memorial. It's the closest. Go check after your shift. You can say your family. Nobody's going to look too hard if you walk in confident." "That's technically kind," Lorraine said firmly. "It's technically kind." And she walked back toward the kitchen. Maya's shift ended in the afternoon. She was pulling on her coat in the back, calculating the bus route to Grady Memorial, when she heard it. She heard it before she saw it. A sound that didn't belong on this particular block of the old Fourth Ward at that hour. A sound that was too smooth, too quiet, too substantial for this street, like a room moving through the air. She stepped out the back door and looked toward the alley entrance and saw the SUV. It was black. Not dark gray or very dark navy, but black in the way of things built to communicate an absence of compromise. A long wheelbase Cadillac Escalade with tinted windows that absorbed the light. It pulled to a slow stop at the alley entrance with the confidence of a vehicle that had never once had to look for parking. The driver, a man in a dark uniform jacket, stepped out and opened the rear door. And then Damien Ashwell stepped onto the pavement of her alley. Maya's first thought was that he was taller than she'd imagined. She had imagined someone from Evelyn's Sideways References, My Son Was Never an Early Riser, and had assembled a vague picture from those fragments. A man, probably middle-aged, probably tired in the particular way of sons, who had been failing someone's expectations for a long time. A man with soft edges and guilty eyes. Damien Ashwell had no soft edges. He was tall, built with the kind of physical certainty that comes from a life where everything that needs to happen gets made to happen. He wore a charcoal wool suit that had not come off any rack, and his face was the color of dark cedar and arranged in an expression of absolute controlled fury. The kind of fury that has been compressed so many times over so many years that it no longer even looks like fury anymore, just the face of a man who has decided something. He crossed the alley toward her with long, deliberate steps. "You work here," he said, not a question. "I do," Maya said. "You're the one who called the ambulance." She straightened her spine. "I am." He stopped a couple of feet from her. Up close, she could see that his eyes were his mother's eyes, that same dark honey color, but where Evelyn's eyes were calm, his were something else entirely. They were the eyes of a man standing very close to the edge of something he had been trying not to fall into for a long time. "How long have you been feeding her?" he said. "Almost a month." Something moved through his jaw, a tightening. "And what exactly were you hoping to get out of that?" The audacity of the question hit Maya like cold water. "Excuse me? A woman appears on your back step. You don't know her. You start buying her food every day for weeks." He let that land. "I'm asking what you expected in return." Maya stared at him. Then she laughed. Not the nice laugh, not the customer-facing laugh, but the short, flat laugh that came out when something was so absurd that politeness couldn't hold. "I expected her to not go hungry," she said. "That's the whole thing, that's all of it. People don't do things for nothing." "I'm going to need you to take several steps back," Maya said, "and reconsider the tone you're using with me." He did not take several steps back. He took one step forward. "You called 911, you didn't call me." "She said your name before she passed out. That was all I had. No last name, no number, no address. I called the only people who could actually help her. She has a cell phone. She never showed it to me, or if she had one, she didn't use it around me." Maya stopped. She looked at him very directly. "You knew she was out there." The word landed cleanly. No drama, no accusation in the voice, just the sentence bare and exact. Damien Ashwell said nothing. "You knew your mother was sitting on a concrete step behind a diner in the cold," Maya said. "And you knew and you didn't do anything." "You don't know anything about my family," he said. His voice came out rougher than he'd intended. She could hear it, the fracture at the edge. "I know she talks about you like you're something she lost," Maya said. "I know she says your name like it costs something. I know she's been sitting on that step in the cold for weeks, and the only person who brought her food was a waitress who couldn't technically afford to. She pulled her bag strap up on her shoulder. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go make sure she's all right. She moved to step around him. His hand came out and caught her arm. Not roughly, not violently, just a grip. A reflex, like he hadn't decided to do it until it was already done. She stopped. He stopped. They were close enough that she could see the actual conflict in his eyes, the anger and the guilt and something underneath both of those things that had no clean name. Wait, he said. She didn't pull away. She didn't move toward him either. She just looked at him with the full force of years of watching people decide whether they were going to be who they should be. She's at Grady, he said. Most likely. His hand dropped from her arm. He looked away, jaw still tight, something working through him that she was not going to be allowed to see fully. My car can take you. I'll take the bus. It's a long ride by bus, much shorter by car. Maya looked at the Escalade. She looked at Damien Ashwell, this tall, furious, guilty man standing in her alley with his mother's eyes. She thought about Evelyn on that hospital bed, alone, with no one having come yet. Fine, she said. She walked to the car. He walked beside her. The driver opened the rear door and she climbed in without saying thank you, because she was not going to perform gratitude right now. Damien Ashwell climbed in on the other side, and the Escalade pulled out of the alley into the gray Atlanta afternoon. They rode in silence for a little while. Then Damien said without looking at her, "Her name is Evelyn Beaumont." Maya said nothing. "She's my mother," he said. "I know," Maya said. Another silence, longer. "She left the house weeks ago," he said. "We had a disagreement. I thought she was staying with her friend in Buckhead." A pause. "I didn't know." Maya looked out the window at Atlanta sliding past. "And if you had known?" He didn't answer. She turned to look at him then. This man who could buy anything in this city, sitting in an expensive car, not answering the most important question she'd asked him. And even in the anger, even in the judgment she was absolutely entitled to, she noticed his hands in his lap, pressed flat against his thighs, the way you press them flat when you need to hold yourself together from the outside because you're not sure you can do it from the inside. She looked back at the window. "Your mother," she said quietly, "makes very good conversation." Damien Ashwell made a sound that was not quite a laugh. It was something sadder and more complicated than a laugh. It was the sound of a man hearing something about a person he had failed to know well enough. He didn't say anything else. The hospital appeared through the windshield and they went in. Grady Memorial in the afternoon was fluorescent and relentless, full of the exhaustion of people waiting too long for news that hadn't come. Maya and Damien walked through the main entrance side by side and not together. She felt the distinction in the way he moved, always a half step ahead, like proximity to another person required deliberate permission. At the intake desk, Damien said his mother's name and something in the room realigned, quietly, efficiently. A nurse appeared. A doctor was called. He was guided toward a private consultation area with the practiced deference of a hospital that recognized which families had wings named after them. Maya stayed in the waiting area. She told herself she could leave. She had done what she came to do. But she stayed. Later, Damien came back. He'd rolled his left sleeve to the elbow, the first imprecise thing she'd seen him do. "Severe dehydration," he said. "Borderline hypothermia. They want to keep her overnight. She'll be all right?" "The doctor says yes." A pause. "She's asking for you." Evelyn looked smaller in the hospital bed than she had on the diner steps, which Maya hadn't thought was possible. She had a heated blanket pulled to her chin and an IV in the back of her left hand, and her headscarf had been replaced by the indignity of a paper hospital gown. But her eyes, when she opened them, were exactly the same. Dark honey, entirely calm. The calm of someone who had decided long ago that panic was a luxury. "You stayed," Evelyn said. "For a while," Maya said. "Sit down." Maya pulled the chair close to the bed and sat. Damien stood in the doorway. She was aware of him there the way you are aware of a weather system. Present, atmospheric, not yet speaking. Evelyn looked at her son for a long moment. Something passed between them that Maya couldn't fully read. Not forgiveness exactly, not accusation either, but something with both of those things in it, compressed into the silence of two people who had been failing to talk to each other for long enough that the failing had become its own language. "Leave us a moment," Evelyn said. Damien's jaw tightened. He left. Evelyn turned back to Maya. She reached out and put her hand over Maya's hand on the bed rail. Her grip was still surprisingly firm for a woman who had nearly passed out from cold and hunger hours earlier. "I owe you an explanation," she said. "You don't owe me anything." "I owe you the truth," Evelyn said, "which is different." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. "My name is Evelyn Beaumont. My son's name is Damien Beaumont Ashwell. His father took a different name, a business name. Damien kept both." A pause. "My husband, Regis, built a company here in Atlanta, real estate and development, beginning decades ago. He and I built it together, though his name was the one on the door." She said this without bitterness, just as information. "Regis died years ago. The company passed to Damien." Maya waited. "We disagreed," Evelyn said carefully, "about the direction of certain things, about what the company owed to the communities it operated in, about what family means when it becomes complicated by money." Her hand tightened slightly on Maya's. "I left weeks ago because I needed Damien to understand something he was not going to understand while I was in that house being managed and accommodated and kept comfortable. I needed him to notice the absence." "You were making a point," Maya said. "I was making a point," Evelyn confirmed. "I did not intend for it to get quite so cold." Something between a laugh and a sigh moved through Maya. "You could have told me You would have treated me differently," Evelyn said. "And I did not want to be treated differently. I wanted exactly what you gave me." She squeezed Maya's hand once and released it. "You gave me your own money. You gave me your time. You gave me conversation that had nothing in it about what I owned or what I was worth." Her voice was steady, but something underneath it was not. "You gave me the thing that people with money almost never receive, Maya. You gave me the simple version of yourself." Maya didn't know what to say to that. She said nothing. Sometimes nothing was the right answer. "My son," Evelyn said, "is going to be difficult. I noticed. He's not a bad man, but he has been powerful for long enough that he has forgotten how to be uncertain. Money does that." She folded her hands on the blanket. "Be patient with him." Maya blinked. We're not." "I know what I see," Evelyn said with the serenity of someone who has been seeing things clearly for decades. "Now go home, rest, come back tomorrow." She did not see Damien again that night, but the next morning he was already outside Maple and Grits when she arrived. A different suit, charcoal with a fine stripe, holding 2 coffees from the place 3 blocks away that charged more than it should for a pour-over. He held one out as she approached like this was a completely normal thing to do at that early hour. She took it because she needed coffee. "This isn't a good start," she said. "I need to talk to you. I have a shift before your shift." He glanced toward the door. 5 minutes? She looked at the coffee, then at him. She leaned against the exterior wall and waited. He cleared his throat. Not nervously. He didn't seem like a man who did things nervously, more like a man who was organizing what he was about to say with the same efficiency he applied to everything. "My mother speaks highly of you," he said. "She's very kind. She told me what you spent." He met her eyes directly. "Weeks of daily meals, a small amount each day." He paused. "I would like to reimburse you." "That's not necessary." "I would also like to offer you a position." Maya straightened. "I have a position. A better one." He held her gaze. "My mother is being released tomorrow. She'll need someone nearby during her recovery. Someone she trusts and who is not on my payroll and therefore not reporting to me. Someone she will actually allow to help her." A beat. "The salary would be 3 times what you make here. Benefits. Housing supplement if needed." Maya stared at him for a long moment. "You want to hire me?" "Yes. To take care of your mother. To be present for her in whatever capacity she finds useful." She let the silence sit for a moment. "And what does your mother think about this plan?" Something crossed his face. "I haven't told her yet." "So this is your idea?" "Yes. Your idea to solve the problem of your mother needing someone to talk to," Maya said slowly. "By paying a person to be that someone." He heard what she was doing with the sentence. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. "I understand how that sounds. Do you?" "I'm trying to fix something," he said, his voice lower, stripped of its executive register, something real in it, unmanaged. I'm not good at this, but I am trying. She looked at him for a long time. I'll think about it, she said. She pushed off the wall and went inside. She hadn't finished thinking about it when Vivian Shaw walked into the diner at midday. Maya didn't know who she was at first. Just a customer, mid-30s, copper-skinned, and immaculately put together in a cream blazer and earrings that were probably real. She sat in Maya's section, ordered sparkling water and a side salad, spent several minutes on her phone, then looked up as if it had just occurred to her. "You're the waitress," she said. "The one who's been talking to Evelyn." Maya set down the water. "Can I help you with something?" "I'm Vivian." She said it like the name was its own complete explanation. "Damien's fiancé." Maya absorbed this. She had not known there was a fiancé. She kept her face neutral. "Nice to meet you." Vivian's smile was warm and technically flawless. "I just wanted to come by and say thank you personally. What you did for Evelyn was so generous." She paused. "Damien mentioned he offered you a job." "He did. I hope you'll say no." The directness of it was almost refreshing. Maya tilted her head. "Why?" Vivian folded her hands on the table. Elegant, deliberate. A gesture that was almost a parody of Evelyn's composure, but colder at the center. "Evelyn is a complicated woman," she said. "She requires a particular kind of management that Damien and I have spent a long time developing. Bringing in someone new, someone she's formed an attachment to, someone outside our circle, creates instability." She unfolded her hands, picked up the sparkling water. "I'm sure you understand." "I understand what you're saying," Maya said. "Good." Vivian smiled again. "I don't agree with it," Maya said pleasantly, and picked up the empty bread basket from the adjacent table and walked back toward the kitchen because she had other tables and this conversation was finished. Behind her, she heard Vivian set down the glass. She didn't look back. That evening, she texted Damien one word, "Yes." His reply came quickly. 3 words. "Thank you, Maya." She stared at her name in his text for a moment. Just her name, no punctuation after it. Like he had started to write something more, and then decided the name alone was enough. Like her name said plainly was already saying something. She put her phone face down on the kitchen counter and did not pick it up again for a while. What the will says. Evelyn's house was in Buckhead, which was not a surprise when Maya saw it. A Georgian colonial behind 2 ancient magnolias, white columns and dark shutters. The kind of house that had simply been there while everything around it reinvented itself decade by decade. Maya started spending mornings there several days after Evelyn was discharged. She arrived mid-morning, stayed into the afternoon doing whatever Evelyn needed, which turned out to be less about physical care and more about presence. Conversation that moved slowly with room for silence and no pressure to fill it. They played cards. They argued companionably over the morning news. Evelyn told Maya her mother's Savannah red rice from memory, narrating each step with the precision of someone who had made it countless times. Maya told Evelyn about growing up in Lagos before her family immigrated to Columbus, Ohio. The city sounds, the market smells, the Nigerian aunties who always knew your business before you did. "Your mother," Evelyn said one morning during a pause in the card game. "Where is she now?" "Passed," Maya said. Just the word. She'd learned to say it simply because simple was the only way through it. 4 years ago, Heart. Evelyn set down her cards. She looked at Maya with that honey-dark steadiness. "I had a daughter," she said. "She would have been older now. She was only days old." Maya held very still. "You don't remind me of her," Evelyn said carefully. "You remind me of what she might have become. That is different. I want you to know I am aware of the difference." "I know," Maya said. "It doesn't make it less real." Evelyn said. She picked her cards back up. "Your turn." Damien came to the house every evening around the same time. Maya was usually gone by then, but their schedules overlapped a couple of times a week, and on those evenings they orbited each other with the careful precision of 2 people very aware of exactly where the other one was. He had stopped being combative, not in one clear moment, but in an accumulation of small ones. He refilled her coffee without asking. He read things aloud from his phone and, without deciding to, included her in whatever conversation followed. He caught her eye at something Evelyn said, and the look wasn't social maintenance, just one person to another, involuntary. She noticed these things the way she noticed the weather, constantly without meaning to. One evening, he was in the kitchen when she stayed late, standing at the counter eating the leftover red rice she had made with Evelyn that morning. He was still in his suit pants and dress shirt, but the jacket was draped over a chair and the collar button was open, and there was something markedly less armored about him in this state. "You made this?" he said. "Your mother made it. I assisted." He ate another forkful. "She used to make this when I was a kid. I haven't had it in—" He stopped, calculated something. "Maybe 15 years. She remembers every single step," Maya said. "She didn't look at a recipe." Something moved across his face. The complicated grief of realizing that the person you have been managing from a distance has been storing whole worlds of themselves that you haven't been present for. "She's a remarkable woman," he said. "She is," Maya agreed. "You should tell her that." He looked at her. "I do. Tell her more." He held her gaze for a beat too long. Then he looked down at the rice. "I know I need to do better," he said quietly. "I know that. The company, the pressure, I know those are not excuses. I know what I let happen. She doesn't need an apology," Maya said. "She needs you to stay in the room." He nodded slowly, like the sentence had landed somewhere specific. She picked up her bag. He walked her to the front door. Not formally, not deliberately, just gravitationally, the way you walk toward the thing you don't yet have permission to move toward openly. At the door she said good night, and he said good night, and she was 2 steps down the brick path when he said her name. "Maya!" She turned. He was standing in the doorway with one hand on the frame, the porch light falling across his face in a way that made him look younger and less certain and more like someone she might know. "Thank you," he said, "for all of it." She looked at him. "Good night, Damien." She walked to the bus stop with her heart doing something she refused to name. The call from Evelyn's attorney came one morning. Maya was there when it happened. She heard Evelyn's end of the conversation from the sunroom. The precise, composed monosyllables that Evelyn used when she was being very careful. When the call ended, Evelyn set the phone on the side table and folded her hands and said, without preamble, "I have changed my will." "Evelyn, it is done," Evelyn said. "I want you to know because you deserve to know, and because Damien will find out. And I want the information to come from me." She looked at Maya steadily. "I have not left you the company. I have left you a portion of the trust, enough to be significant, and I have designated you a member of the family in the formal language of the document." She paused. "Because that is what you are." Maya felt the room tilt slightly. "You can't—" "I have," Evelyn said. "And it is not negotiable, so please do not spend energy trying to negotiate it." A small, precise smile. "What you may spend energy on is sitting back down and finishing this card game, which I was about to win." Vivian found out within a couple of days. Maya didn't know how, whether Damien had told her, or whether she had her own channels into the attorney's office. But she found out, and the finding out changed something in her that had already been something Maya didn't trust. The photos appeared one morning on a local Atlanta gossip page, already hundreds of comments deep when Maya found it. The images showed Damien and Maya outside the Buckhead house, his hand on her arm, their faces close, the porch light doing something cinematic to the angle. She knew exactly what moment it was. She remembered the good night, the gratitude, the 2 steps down the brick path, remembered it precisely because she had been trying hard not to think about it. The anonymous caption implied everything while stating nothing. Damien Ashwell's new family advisor gets close to the heir. By midday, several outlets had picked it up. By afternoon, her phone was ringing from numbers she didn't know. By mid-afternoon, Damien was standing in the Maple and Grits parking lot. She was on shift because she had not quit the diner. And his face was something she hadn't seen on him before. Not the compressed fury of the alley, something colder, something that had hardened. "I need to ask you something," he said. She read his face. "You already think you know the answer," she said. "Did you arrange this?" The question arrived like a slap that hadn't used a hand. She stood very still. "No. The photos were taken from the north side of the property. There's no public access point there. The only way someone knew where to be and when was if someone inside the property told them." Maya said, "Which is exactly right. But that someone was not me. You had access to the house every morning." "Damien," she said, his name flat and clean. "Look at me." He looked at her. "I fed your mother with my own money for weeks. I did not know who she was. I did not know who you were. I said yes to this arrangement because she asked me to and because I care about her." Her voice was steady. She made it steady. Think about what you're accusing me of. Something flickered in his eyes, but the coldness held. I have to consider every possibility, he said. My mother just changed her will. There is now a significant financial... Stop, she said. He stopped. I understand what you're doing, she said. I understand the logic, but understanding the logic doesn't make it hurt less. She picked up her apron from the bench beside her. I'm going back to work. If you decide you believe me, you know where I am. She went inside. She tied her apron in the back hallway with hands that were steady, made them steady, walked to her section and served tables for hours without dropping a thing. It was only on the bus home in the dark that she pressed her forehead against the cold window and let herself feel the weight of what had just broken. It was her phone buzzing that pulled her back. A text from a number she didn't know containing 2 photos. Photo 1. Vivian Shaw outside a coffee shop talking to a man with a camera bag. Photo 2. A timestamp and a property map with a location pin on the north side of a Buckhead address. The message below the photo said only, "She had someone watching the house for weeks. See Evelyn." Maya stared at the screen. She had the evidence. She had the proof. She could send it to Damien right now and watch the whole thing unravel in his hands. She put the phone in her pocket. Then she realized something else was unraveling. Something slower and more private. Something she had been ignoring for weeks by keeping herself busy and professional and exactly where she was supposed to be. She pressed her hand flat against her stomach on the empty bus in the dark, going home. She had been ignoring something else, too. She counted backward, then forward, then backward again. The numbers were the same every time. Ashes and accusations. She was gone by the following Sunday. She didn't make a scene of it. She didn't write a long letter or send a final text or stand outside the Buckhead house waiting for someone to come out and ask her to stay. She packed the one duffel bag she had brought to Atlanta years ago, the same one she'd carried off the Greyhound from Columbus with little money and a number for a cousin's couch. And she bought a one-way bus ticket to Savannah, and she left. She told Lorraine, just Lorraine. She called her on a Saturday evening and said she needed to take some time and asked if her position would be held. And Lorraine said, in the particular tone she used when she was not going to ask questions she couldn't answer yet, "I understand. Your section will be here when you're ready. You call me." She told no one else. She found a room in Savannah's East Side neighborhood through a woman named Dorothea, who rented to people she liked the look of and asked no questions beyond whether you were quiet and whether you cleaned up after yourself. The room had a window that faced a live oak with Spanish moss hanging from it, like the tree had been interrupted mid-sentence for 100 years, and a twin bed with a quilt that smelled like cedar, and a radiator that clicked and hissed through the night like it was trying to tell her something. It cost a modest amount a month, which she paid in advance with the last of what she had saved, and then she went looking for work. She found it at a place called the Low Country Table, a small restaurant 2 blocks from the waterfront. She crab soup and shrimp and grits, biscuits nearly as good as Lorraine's. The owner, a compact Gullah woman named Rosalie Pinckney, hired her on the spot after watching her carry 4 full plates without a tray. "You running from something or toward something?" Rosalie asked. Maya thought about it honestly. Both. Rosalie studied her with the unblinking assessment of someone rarely wrong about people. "That's honest," she said. "You're hired." She was several weeks along, confirmed on her 3rd day in Savannah at a clinic off Abercorn Street, sitting in a paper gown, processing the information the way she processed things she needed to understand fully before allowing herself to feel. She felt it on the walk home, in the Spanish moss quiet, in the patience of a city that had seen enough history to absorb whatever you brought to it. She sat in Forsyth Park and watched the fountain and let herself feel the whole enormous reality, what was happening in her body, what it meant, who the other half of it was, and how the anger and the grief and something she hadn't yet named all existed in the same moment without canceling each other out. She heard her mother's voice clearly, the way she sometimes did when the choice was obvious, and she was the only one standing in her own way. "You already know what to do. You've always known. Stop waiting." She went back to work. She ate a good dinner. She was eating for 2, and Savannah knew how to feed people. She went home and slept. In Atlanta, things were coming apart in a different way. Damien spent several days being certain he was right. He replayed the logic, the timing, the photos, the access, the will, and it held the way logic always holds when you are determined to hold it. He kept the conclusion intact through board meetings and did not think about a woman pressing her hand to the door of a Savannah-bound bus. He hadn't known she was going to Savannah. He found out from Lorraine on the 5th day, driving to Maple and Grits, because something underneath the logic kept not holding. Lorraine looked at him across the counter with the expression of a woman who had made a decision about him and was deciding whether to share it. She poured him a coffee he hadn't asked for. She set it in front of him and said, "You know what I notice about the people who come in here every day? They tip the same regardless of what's going on in their lives. Bad day, good day, doesn't matter. The ones who see the person bringing the food tip the same. The ones who don't. She wrapped her hands around her own mug. Maya tipped out of her own pocket to a woman she didn't know for weeks. A pause. That's who she is. That's the whole answer to whatever question you're standing here with. Damien said nothing. Savannah, Lorraine said, that's all I'll give you. He went back to the Buckhead house and he sat in the kitchen. The kitchen where the red rice had been made, where the collar of his shirt had been open, where he had said thank you and meant something larger than the words. And he opened his laptop and he started going through everything. Every piece of the story, every angle. He found Vivian's error on the 7th day. It was a small thing, the kind of mistake that careful people make when they believe they have been careful enough and allow themselves one moment of convenience. A text message recovered by the company's IT security during a routine audit of shared devices between Vivian and a number that traced to a freelance photographer with a history of tabloid work. The text was 2 weeks old. It contained a home address in Buckhead, a description of a specific porch light, and 2 words. Thursday evening. He read it 3 times. He sat with it for a long time. Then he called his attorney. Evelyn had known longer. She had suspected from the day the photos appeared, had recognized in the geometry of the image the specific angle from the north side of the property that no one accessed accidentally. She had sent Maya the evidence the same night from a backup phone Damien didn't know about, because Evelyn Beaumont had not built a fortune and survived years of widowhood and one night of near hypothermia on a diner step by being slow. But she had said nothing to Damien directly. She had waited because Evelyn understood in the way that mothers of complicated sons understand that some truths have to be arrived at rather than delivered. A truth handed to Damien would be processed by his mind, filed, analyzed, managed. A truth he found himself would go somewhere deeper. She was right, as she generally was about these things. What she had not anticipated was the recurrence. On the 9th day after Maya left Atlanta, Evelyn woke at an early hour with a pain in her chest that was specific and unambiguous about its nature. She lay still for a moment and assessed it with the pragmatic calm she applied to most crises, determined it was cardiac and not anxiety, and reached for her phone. She called Damien first. Then she called 911. Then she folded her hands on top of the quilt with the composure of someone who had made peace with the possibility of difficult mornings and waited for whichever arrived first. Damien arrived first by less than a minute. He sat beside her in the ambulance with her hand in both of his, and he did not say anything useful or instructive or managerial. He just held on. And Evelyn, looking at her son's face in the lurching blue-red light of the ambulance interior, thought, "There he is. There's the boy." She had been waiting years for him to stop being the executive and be the boy again, just for a moment, just long enough for her to see him. "I know about Vivian," he said. His voice was rough. "I know you know," she said. "I'm sorry for what I said to Maya." "Don't tell me," Evelyn said. Her grip tightened on his hand. "Go tell her." Vivian, when confronted, did not crumble. She pivoted, reached quickly for the next argument, the next version of events. She was very good at it. But Damien had the text message, the photographer's records, the photo metadata, precise location, precise time, and an attorney who had seen enough of this kind of evidence to know exactly what it meant. Vivian left on a Thursday, smoothly, as if departing on her own terms was still technically a kind of winning. Damien stood at the window and watched the car go. He didn't feel relief. He felt something simpler and heavier. The weight of a man seeing himself clearly for the first time in a long time, and not entirely liking what he saw. He picked up his phone. He looked at Maya's contact. Last message sent weeks ago. 3 words. "Thank you, Maya." He put the phone down. He drove to the diner instead. Lorraine looked at him when he walked in. She looked at his face, and whatever she saw there made her nod slowly once. The nod of a woman whose assessment of a person was in the process of being revised upward. "Table for one," she said. "Just the address," he said, "please." Lorraine considered him for several seconds. Then she went to the back and came out with a piece of paper and set it on the counter in front of him without a word. He picked it up. He went back to his car. He sat for a moment with the piece of paper in his hand, and the engine not yet running, and the afternoon light falling through the windshield at the particular angle of an Atlanta day that is trying imperfectly to be warm. He thought about a woman sitting on a cold concrete step with her hands folded in her lap and a voice that placed every word precisely like good china. He thought about weeks of eggs and biscuits and a small amount each day paid quietly, told to no one. He thought about a good night on a brick porch and the 2 steps down, and the name said into the cold air behind her, and the thing he had not yet named for himself clearly enough to say it. He started the engine. He drove south. Home is where you return. Maya was on the lunch shift when he walked in. She was carrying a bowl of she-crab soup to table 4, and she didn't see him right away. She was watching the soup because Rosalie did not permit spillage on the grounds that she-crab soup at the low country table was a sacred thing and should be transported accordingly. And she set the bowl down and straightened and turned toward the door, and there he was. He was standing just inside the entrance in his drive coat, hair slightly less composed than she had ever seen it. A man who had been in a car for hours and had not thought once about what he was going to say when he arrived. A man who had for once done something before he finished planning it. He saw her the same moment she saw him. The restaurant had 7 tables, 6 occupied, the lunch bustle going on around them indifferent. The way the world always goes on indifferent to the things that matter most inside it. Maya walked to the host stand. "You drove," she said. "Yes, hours. Just under 4, he said. "I took the interstate most of the way, less traffic." She looked at him. The silence between them had weight. Not the weight of emptiness, but of everything that had been accumulating since an autumn morning on a cold back step, building through hospital waiting rooms and parking lot confrontations and bus rides home in the dark until it was too heavy to carry separately and had to be set down somewhere together. "I found the text messages," he said. "Between Vivian and the photographer dated weeks before the photos appeared." A pause. "It was her. All of it. All." "I know," Maya said. "Your mother sent me the evidence the night it happened." Something moved through him. "She didn't tell me she'd done that. She was waiting for you to find it yourself," Maya said. "She said a truth handed to you would be managed. A truth you found would go somewhere deeper." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice had the quality of something that had been held under pressure for a long time and had finally been allowed to surface. "She's right," he said. "She's almost always right. I've spent a long time making myself too busy to notice that." "I know," Maya said again more gently. "I said things to you in that parking lot that I cannot take back." "No," she agreed, "you can't." He held her gaze. "I'm not here to take them back. I'm here because—" He stopped. She watched him search for the sentence. This man who was precise about everything and was not right now being precise at all. And she understood that this imprecision was the most important thing he had offered her since they met. "I'm here because the thing I said to you in that parking lot was wrong, and because I drove hours before I finished deciding to, and I'd like to. I need to." He exhaled. "Tell me what I need to do, Maya. Tell me." She looked at him. Around them, the low country table went on being a restaurant, soup moving, plates arriving, a child at table 2 demanding a second biscuit. The ordinary world indifferent as always to 2 people standing at a host stand with everything between them. "There's something I have to tell you first," she said. His expression shifted, a careful alertness, the kind that precedes news you can feel coming before it arrives. She held his gaze and she told him simply, directly, the way her mother had taught her to deliver truth. Not softened into ambiguity, not dressed up in preamble, but placed clearly and given room to land. He said nothing for a moment. Then he sat down on the bench by the host stand, not because he was asked to, but because his body decided before he did. He sat with his hands pressed flat against his thighs, the way she had seen him do once before in the Escalade, holding himself together from the outside. Several seconds of middle distance, then he looked up. "Okay," he said. She blinked. "Okay? I mean, not okay as in small and uncomplicated. Okay as in I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever this requires, I'm here for it." He stood. He met her eyes without armor, without management. Just the actual him showing up. "If you'll let me." She studied his face. The tells she had learned, the fractures, the moments when the executive fell away. She looked at him now with all of it, and what she saw was not performance, not strategy, just a man telling the truth, asking for something he didn't know how to ask for gracefully. "You should know," she said quietly, "that I am not easy. I grew up with little and a duffel bag, and I have never once needed rescuing. I'm not going to start now." "I know," he said, "and I'm not leaving Savannah yet. I like it here. Rosalie needs me through the season." "Okay. And you're going to apologize to me properly, not right now, but before the end of the week. With words, Damien. Full sentences." Something that was almost a smile moved across his face. The first real one she had ever seen on him. Uncontrolled, slightly crooked, entirely unmanaged. It rearranged his face into something softer and more uncertain and infinitely more interesting than everything that had come before it. "Full sentences," he said. "Full sentences." He reached out then, not for her hand, not dramatically, just the side of his hand against the side of hers. The quietest possible form of contact, barely a touch, like asking a question so carefully that the question itself was the answer. She didn't move her hand away. The apology came one evening in Forsyth Park. He sat beside her on the bench where she had counted backward in the dark, and he apologized fully, in complete sentences, without self-justification. He said what he had done and what it had cost her, and that he was sorry. And then he stopped talking and let the sorry sit between them like something real. She listened to all of it. "Then, I accept that." He exhaled, long, slow, releasing something held too tight. She put her hand in his. They sat until the Savannah evening settled around them, soft and warm, fountain running, live oaks dark against the sky, the city waiting with the patience of a place that has seen everything and is ready, always, to see what comes next. The baby came one afternoon in summer, a girl, healthy weight, with Damien's cedar complexion and Maya's wide, dark eyes, and a voice that announced itself to the delivery room at Savannah's Memorial Health with a force entirely disproportionate to her size. Evelyn was there. She had driven down from Atlanta days before and waited with the composure of a woman who has been waiting a long time for something good and knows patience is simply the price of it. When the nurse placed the baby in her arms, Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the child's face with the complete attention she gave to everything that mattered. "Well," she said, her voice steady and only slightly undone. "Hello." The baby looked directly back at her with the authority of someone who had arrived from a great distance and intended to be known. Maya, watching from the bed with Damien's hand in both of hers, felt the whole improbable chain of it. One autumn morning, one cold step, a small daily kindness, leading through hospital corridors and parking lots and long drives and a winter park bench to this room. This light, this family assembled from smaller choices made correctly. "Her name," Damien said low beside her ear. "Daisy," Maya said, "for my mother." He was quiet for a moment, then Daisy Evelyn. She turned to look at him. He was not performing composure. He was not managing anything. He was just a man at the edge of something enormous, holding her hands with his mother across the room, holding their daughter, and his eyes doing the thing that eyes do when the feeling is too large for the face to contain it all. "Yes," Maya said, "Daisy Evelyn." 1 year later, Maple and Grit's diner looked the same from the outside. Same brick front, same hand-painted sign, same small concrete step where the memory of a woman in a brown dress with folded hands lived in the air like something permanent. Inside, the ownership papers filed with Fulton County listed 2 names now, Lorraine Marsh and Maya Ashwell. Behind the counter, a framed photo. A woman in a black waitress uniform, a tall man in charcoal, an elderly woman with honey-dark eyes, and a baby held toward the camera like an offering. And every Tuesday morning, the service entrance step held a thermos of coffee and a brown paper bag. Eggs, a biscuit, something warm, left before the diner opened for whoever needed it. Maya had started the first week back. She told no one. She just did it quietly, consistently, the way her mother would have done it, with money she could barely afford, and the conviction that the gesture was worth more than the calculation. Lorraine had seen her do it exactly once, on a cold winter morning, when they were both in early and the alley was still dark. She hadn't said anything. She just poured 2 coffees and handed one to Maya, and they'd stood there for a moment in the half-dark before the morning began. The way you stand with someone you trust completely, in the comfortable, sufficient silence of people who understand each other. Then Lorraine said, "Your section's going to fill fast today." "I know," Maya said. They went inside, and,